complex presentation. You'll have plenty of questions at the end. I don't think my next speaker needs an introduction. For the second years that have been here, and for the first years you're getting to know who Shymaa Allam is. We'd like to welcome her family who's come all the way from Egypt.
Thank you.
The second year SID program. Everyone knows her, and she does so much good work. She will be speaking on the empowerment of women, especially in microfinance institutions in Egypt, which, as we know, is going through a profound change in its history and in our history as well. So please welcome Shymaa.
Well, first of all, thank you again very much for coming. I didn't expect this packed room. It really means a lot for us. We understand how competitive this whole panel thing is, so thank you very much for taking the time. And yes, as Professor Raj was saying, I'll be talking about empowering women through microfinance in Egypt. And I would love first to introduce you to Sumaya. Sumaya is an Egyptian woman. She's now 39 years old. When I met her 2 years ago, she was 37. So I don't do the math. She's 39 years old now, and she's been a microfinance client for one of the biggest microfinance organizations in Egypt for 7 years now. And she started her loan with less than $100 in Egyptian pounds. That's equivalent than less than $100. She has 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl, and her girl had some heart problems, and she had to work to afford living with her husband to pay for the medication for her little girl and also afford living with other expenses. She first started as selling vegetables, and she found out that this is not very much working, and she had to dig deep and do other market research to see what are the businesses needed so she can get into this market and find more income-generating activities for her family. So she started to do garbage sorting, which is basically a recycling thing, because we don't have this recycling system you have here, guys, in the US. We have all the garbage like in one bin in Egypt. So some people just go to look to this garbage, and they do the sorting themselves, so that the plastic and all the things that are recyclable go to factories. So she started to work on sorting these garbages, and she started to track all the process of the recycling. So she found, with working with factories and other people who bought this sorted garbage, that most of the plastic things that she gives them are basically crashed into powder, and this powder plastic is getting into another cycle of manufacturing. So she thought, like, I can do also the crashing, and she started to get the machines to crash these plastic things herself. After the events of the revolution in 2011, because she lives in a slum area where security is a big issue for people to come into the slum area and get out of the slum area, she couldn't find people to deliver her products, her crashed plastic, to the factories. So she decided to learn how to drive herself, and she managed to get a truck. And this is her picture driving her truck, so she can move around the whole country and sell her products to the factories, and she keeps her businesses going. She now has like a very big, small factory herself of recycling and crashing these plastics. She now has more than 10 women employees of her neighborhood, and she managed to get the appropriate medication for her daughter. Sounds great? Unfortunately, she is the exception. She's not the case for all other women in microfinance in Egypt. There are other women who are also struggling with their business and with finding enough sources and funding for their businesses to grow up and scale up their businesses and afford living for their families. They are enormous, they are enthusiastic, and they are great. But what's the problem with microfinance in Egypt? First of all, you have to know that all the microfinance all over the world is all about women, basically, and you all know about the Grameen Foundation and the Grameen model. And there's some statistics from the literature review that we had to go through anyway for the paper, that Grameen Foundation, for instance, have more than 97% of their clients are women. Other big microfinance institutions also are focusing on women. So how is the microfinance market in Egypt? The microfinance simply is about the financial inclusion of the poor into the generic economic system of any specific country. So they are owed to provide financial products and services on a micro scale for poor who cannot afford accessing the bank or the non-bankable people. So we have microcredit, which is most famous, and some people use the microcredit parallel to the microfinance and they refer to them as one thing, but theoretically speaking they are not. So we have the microcredit, we have the micro-saving, micro-remittance, and micro-insurance. Basically anything that you can do in your bank, microfinance should be provided to the poor. The thing is, the microcredit, for instance, is a little bit scattered in a way because some of them are provided with NGOs in Egypt. Other banks have microcredit also services provided in Egypt, and some private companies. And each of these categories are supervised by a different authority. The NGOs are supervised by the Ministry of Social Solidarity. That's a ministry. The banks are supervised by the central bank, which is an independent authoritarian government organization or government agency that's not under any ministry, and the private companies are supervised by the Ministry of Investment, which is another different ministry. So it's all the microfinance, all the microcredit are there, but they are scattered in a way that they are not well combined, and you can really touch upon the expansion of the microfinance services in Egypt. Of course, because of the revolution and all the data that were missed in a way in Egypt, the most reliable data I could find were back in 2009, the end of 2009, which is basically 2010, 1 year before the revolution. And they say like we have 1.4 million active clients, borrowers, in Egypt, and more than 50% of them are women. And women in Egypt, the majority of them are in group lending, where 3 to 5 women come into one group, and they take the loan as a collective body, and they act as a guarantor for each other. So that's how the organization, the providing organization, microfinance organization, makes sure that they will get their money back. So when a woman falls for a reason or another because of a family issue or whatever, other women have to cover her installment of the loan. This is the basic microfinance model. The problem in microfinance in Egypt for women is basically, again, allied with the literature review and allied with other developing countries, that the studies prove that women businesses don't get very much growing and scaling up as much as men do, not because of their lack of capability or because of their managerial skills. It's basically because of the expenditure behavior of women. Women tend to invest back more into the household, not into the business. So they tend to get more equipment for the household, more stoves, more refrigerators, anything that would work properly in the household, more than investing back in their businesses, unlike men. Also, the shadow cost of the family needs, which is basically food, medicine, education. Women are the ones who are paying the biggest majority of this thing. And the lack of travel, not all women, especially in poor areas, are allowed to travel to market their products or to get new business opportunities. And in some areas, lacking the managerial skills just because of the education level of women. When a poor family has to decide whether a girl or a boy goes to school, we all know that the answer is the boy. Bad choice. How are we going to solve this? What can we do about this? In Egypt, we have a National Council for Women, which is a very famous, strong, well-structured organization. It's a governmental organization. It was established back in 2002 after the Egyptian ratification on the CEDAW Convention, and they were supposed to report on all the women issues and women problems, suggest policies to enhance women's position in the society. This is their mandate, this is what they're supposed to do, and they report directly to the president, so they are higher than any other ministry. And they actually have a very good story. Back in 2003, they managed to advocate for changing the law of the Egyptian nationality to enable Egyptian women to pass their Egyptian nationality to their children. Before this, it was only the man, the father, who is Egyptian, who can pass his nationality to the children. So they managed to do this, and they can do a lot of policy changes regarding women enhancement, status enhancement in Egypt. So they have this in their mandate. They have an office in each and every governorate. The governorate is a little bit equivalent to the state within the US system. So they have an office in each governorate and big cities in Egypt. They have the ability to secure funds. They are government, so they have access to the UNDP, to the World Bank, to all the people with big money. So they can do this, and they also can advocate for changing some of the budget items in the government budget to allocate it for women issues. And they also can advocate, and they can sponsor big campaigns, educating the whole population about women role, women empowerment, how when you educate your children, especially your girls, they can also contribute to your family as much as boys, in fact more. And they also have the ability to address ministries and big high officials, people, because it's again within their mandate. So what I'm suggesting in this paper, and based on my experience, is to get the National Council for Women to champion the change we want to see. They have to train women. They already have an economic development unit in the National Council for Women, and they provide a lot of training for businesses. But they have to go a little bit to the poor, a little bit to the micro level, and they have to provide more trainings for microfinance clients of the NGOs. So they have to cooperate with the NGOs to identify women microfinance clients. And the Social Fund for Development is also another governmental organization, and they work on the microfinance and big scale in Egypt. They can provide more training and experience because they have experience with startups. They provide a lot of funds for youth to start up their own businesses, so they can tailor another program of startups for women. While the National Council for Women works in collaboration with a microfinance institution on pushing for the policy changes we want to see to allow women to move from the group lending to the individual lending. And women cannot move to the individual lending in Egypt because the microfinance institution asks for some sort of property ownership or something that women don't usually have. Although they've been doing great work on the group loan scales, and they've been moving from a loan tier to a bigger one until they reach the maximum of the group lending capacity, and women want to go further and further, but NFIs cannot support them. So the National Council for Women can work on changing policies within the Ministry of Social Solidarity that supervises NGOs, and they can also push forward the central bank to move banks to support those kind of women to ratify their credit and their track of record with the NGOs as a collateral in itself. This is my picture working with the one of the projects I've worked on right before I come here to Heller. I'm here in the middle, you can see me, of course. And these actually are numbers of microfinance clients, and some of them are women, and they were recognized for the great job they did. I'm putting this picture to show you that we have a lot of great work going in Egypt, and really doing great. Yes, we're passing through a huge change in our country, but I'm so confident we're going to make it. And there's a lot of people really interested in doing this and seeing their dream come true. And it's in our blood. We're protesting in the streets now, and women are there, girls are there, and everything is going well. I'm confident that we're going to pass this safely with lots of enthusiasm. And as long as we're having people like myself and my brother, we were actually covering each other into protests and not tell our mom. And we were going to the streets because she was afraid. But even after what happened for 1 year, she was the one who was pushing us in the streets in June 30th, 2012 to protest against the Muslim Brotherhood because she was sure that this is not the dream we wanted to. So thank you very much. Thank you all.
Shymaa's energy, you don't need coffee. She is an example of this empowerment that she wants to see happen in her country and everywhere. Thank you, Shymaa. Next we'll have Satam. He is going to speak to us about agricultural sustainability.